Now, no one tells you this when you move to Australia, but some of the things we Brits do without even thinking are actually considered a little bit rude here. And trust me, I had to learn these things the hard way. So grab yourself a cuppa and let's get into it. Hey mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British actor documenting my journey of escaping the UK for a better life here in Australia. Now, it's important for me to note that while these aren't the best habits, they're not going to destroy any friendships here in Australia. So number one is parking against the flow of the traffic. Now in the UK, if you want to park on the side of the road, you can park any direction you want. Here in Australia though, you are not allowed to park against the flow of the traffic. And legalities aside, it's just seen as lazy and really annoying to other Aussies. Aussies will be like, what a drongo, what an idiot.
You drongo.
I had my stag do in Brisbane and my best mate and my best man flew all the way from the UK to celebrate with me. And the first time he ever parked on the side of the road in Australia, he parked against the flow of the traffic and all of my brother-in-laws absolutely ripped into him. He was getting all of the jokes made at him. And yeah, it was just a good moment and a good realization that even if you do get these things wrong in Australia, they're not going to be mean to you. They're not going to be rude to you. They're just going to let you know to save you from future embarrassment, which is absolutely awesome. And honestly, this is one of the biggest mistakes I see tourists make in Australia. Now I think about it, there's quite a few other road rule differences here in Australia compared to the UK. So if you'd like me to make a video about that, let me know in the comments below. Number two is flashing your headlights to say thank you. I remember vividly driving with my wife in the UK, and it was the first time we were in the car together, and it was a really narrow road, as most of them are in the UK, and I saw some cars coming towards me, so I pulled behind a parked car on the road, and to give way to that traffic, I gave them a little flash with my headlights. And my wife was like, what are you doing? They didn't do anything wrong. And I was like, no, that's to say, you know, come on through. And then the flow of cars came through and they all flashed me back. And she was like, now they're flashing you. And I'm like, yeah, it's to say thank you back to me. But then my wife, who is Aussie, said to me, no, you can't do that in Australia. If you flash people in Australia, they're going to think you're getting like really aggro with them. They're going to think that you're being rude to them or trying to like swear at them. And I'm like, what? So when I drive in Australia, I'm not allowed to flash other people. She was like, not unless you want to annoy people. And I was like, oh man, like that's my favorite way to, you know, say thank you. I feel so cool doing it. And just a quick one, guys. I was checking my analytics today and I realized that over 98% of you who regularly watch these videos aren't yet subscribed. So if you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button. Helps me to keep these videos coming. Let's get back to it. Number three is saying all right or all right, mate, as a way to say hello. Now this just doesn't translate in Australia. Now in the UK, this is a completely normal greeting. You'll go all right and the other person will just go all right. End of greeting. But when I started dating my wife and I would see her and I would greet her and I would go all right, she'd be like, yeah, why? What's wrong with me? And I'd be like, no, nothing's wrong with you. I'm just saying hello. However, I'm grateful that the word mate is just as common here in Australia as it is in the UK.
Oh mate, it's Jack here.
Number four is complaining, especially about Australia. Brits are kind of stereotyped in Australia as whinging poms. Now, to be fair, a lot of Brits in the UK are whinging and complaining and moaning, but that's because a lot of Brits aren't particularly happy in the UK. They're not happy with the weather or how much they're getting paid or with the seasonal affective disorder they have. I was whinging and complaining in the UK until I realized I had to do something about it, and that's why I moved here, which I'm really grateful I did. But Brits and anyone else who is looking to either visit Australia or move here, you've got to take it easy on the complaining because Aussies just don't have the time for it. It's actually quite amazing how little Aussies complain. And does that contribute to their overall happiness? I would say so, because there's that experiment you can do where if you go a whole 24 hours without complaining, you don't let yourself say one negative thing, most people end up being much happier at the end of it. Now, some people might say, Sam, that's just toxic positivity. Look, I completely get it. We all need to vent sometimes. We all need to rant, and that's what our closest friends and family are there for. But there is a point where it becomes so much that it's just boring and exhausting for everyone else. And honestly, if you complain too much in Australia, Aussies will just turn around and say, mate, if you don't like it, then do something about it. We don't want to hear about it all the time. Now, Aussies being upfront with you is actually a really healthy and good thing. It might be a bit of a culture shock at first, but when you realize the improvements it's making to yourself, you realize that it helps you to grow. It makes you take a step back and go, oh, maybe I do complain a bit too much, and maybe I would actually be happier if instead of whinging all the time, I take some action on it and I actually do the things I know I need to do to become a happier person. Number five, not embracing the banter. Sometimes the banter in the UK can turn a bit venomous and it's a bit like bullying occasionally in workplaces and family scenarios. And I do feel like the banter in Australia is just a bit healthier, a bit less trying to pull you down and more lift you up. Now, I know a lot of people complain about tall poppy syndrome here in Australia, but honestly, I don't really encounter a lot of it. I don't really see a lot of it. And when Aussies are cracking the odd joke at you, you actually feel like you're part of their family and their group, as opposed to in the UK, if people are poke and banter at you, sometimes it feels like they're trying to alienate you and push you out of the group.
Don't forget the thumbs up. Oh, friend. Oh, new friend. Oh, friend. Please be my friend.
So my best advice to you is lean into the laughs with Aussies. It means you're part of their tribe. If someone cracks a light-hearted joke at you and you try and get defensive, it's just going to make it a bit awkward. On the whole, it's their love language and it means you're part of the group, so enjoy it. Number 6 is being too private. Now, Brits often are stereotyped as being quite reserved, and this isn't completely untrue. It takes us a little while to warm up, a little while to defrost. Now, without getting too stereotypical, I do find Aussies are a lot more of an open book, and they wear their heart on their sleeve a little bit more, and a lot more open to have a bit of a laugh and a chat. But Brits, we kind of hold our cards closer to our chest. Now, I can't speak for all Brits with this, but I know that growing up with my background, I was even a little bit emotionally stunted, and I sometimes found it hard to express that I understood how they felt about a certain situation or a story they were telling, until I started to integrate with more Aussies, and I realized maybe I need to open up a little bit more and stop being so reserved. Aussies, I find that when you're standing with them in the elevator or you're waiting in line, they'll have a chat to you. They'll tell you about their family, their job, some of their problems going on in their life. And the amazing thing I found is that if I give a piece of myself back and I start sharing some information about myself, like where I'm from and some of my problems and, what I do for work and stuff, I build this connection with them instantly, and that just doesn't happen as much in the UK. And if you use a bit of your vulnerability as currency in a conversation with Aussies, they're gonna love you for it, and you're gonna build that connection with them so much faster. And if Australia is sounding pretty amazing to you, which it is, I actually have a free weekly newsletter that's only a 3-minute read, and it's packed with a load of honest tips about how I moved to Australia and how you can build a better life wherever you are in the world. So you can subscribe to that with one click using the link in the description below, and when you do, you get my Move to Australia guide for completely free. And honestly, it's what I wish I had when I first moved here. Number 7 is talking too much about the UK or wherever you're from. Now, this habit is less rude and more just boring. Now, in my early months of living in Australia, I caught myself doing this all the time with my wife, with my in-laws, and with new friends I was making. I was constantly saying things like, oh, in London, we do this. Oh, back in the UK, this is different. And it wasn't until I started doing more research about living in Australia and Aussies that I realized that Aussies do not like this. People would just get tired of it. Now look, this is slightly hypocritical of me, having a channel that is often based around comparisons between the UK and Australia. Now I'm thinking about all the videos where I've done this, but it still needs to be said. So find the balance. Definitely talk about where you're from, but also embrace the new country that you're in, which is beautiful Australia. Enjoy it, experience it, and why not talk a bit of positivity about how much you love Australia itself. Number 8 is being too indirect with how you feel. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, hinting doesn't work here. It's a very British thing with our sort of, upper jaw being like, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Now, I learned this very quickly dating an Australian person, and if we were having a bit of a disagreement, as you sometimes do in relationships, I would be very British about it and try to hint at certain, what I would want from my wife Maddie and what maybe I didn't like, but without actually saying it. And honestly, this would just make the tension rise and it would make things so much more awkward. So do yourself a favor, be candid, be open, and try to be honest. I know it might be difficult, especially if you're British, but trust me, it is way easier. And by the way, just because Aussies are more honest in their communication doesn't mean they won't completely know what you're doing when you're hinting at things. They will completely see through it and it will just irk them. They'll be like, okay mate, I know what you're trying to say, so why don't you just come out with it and say it? And having the culture shock of realizing that doesn't work in Australia is making me a better person. It's gonna make me be more more honest and upfront with how I feel about things. Now, this isn't to say you go around and you start criticizing people and saying, no, I don't like that, I don't like this. Nobody wants that. But as long as you're kind and respectful in your approach, clarity just shows confidence. So say it once and say it well. Now, wherever you're from, you might be wondering how not to stick out like a sore thumb here in Australia. So I made this video all about the 10 secret rules that tourists break in Australia. And honestly, I learned a lot of these things the hard way, just like in this video. So go watch that now. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much. You're a legend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.